Hello and welcome to today's European SharePoint and Office 365 Community Webinar. My name is Shane and I'm delighted to be joined by Riaz, Javed, who will be talking to you about identity management in Office 365. Remember to join in the conversation about today's webinar on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC16. After the webinar, we will have a questions and answers session. Type any questions you have for Riaz in the questions window. Some questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and you will be notified by email when it is available. And now I'm going to pass you over to our webinar presenter, Riaz Javed. Hello, Riaz. Oh, sorry, Riaz. Hello, Riaz. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Shane. I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Take it away, Riaz.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. So this is Riaz, and today I'm going to talk about the identity management solutions in Office 365. The reason for that why we are going to talk about this particular piece is because I have seen a lot of customers when they are planning to migrate or move their services to Office 365, the first most important component is the identity management, that how they are going to handle their identity in Office 365. And that's the reason we have selected this topic for today's webinar, and we are going to look at the different identity management options that are available to us in 365 and which option we have to select based on our scenario or the requirements. What would be the best solution for our customer?
Sorry to cut in, Riaz.
Yep.
I can't actually see your screen at the moment.
Just a moment. Let me see that.
So just bear
Can you
with
see
me.
my screen now?
Just bear with me here.
Can you see my screen now?
Hang on one sec. Yes, brilliant. We can see it now. That's great, Riaz. Take it away.
Thank you, Shane. So today we are going to talk about the identity management solutions in Office 365. And before we start about our agenda and topics, let me give you a bit of history about who is Riaz. First and foremost, Riaz is a human being, and I'm a technology evangelist with over 8 years of consulting services experience with working with large enterprise customers that range like from 10,000 users accounts to 150 users accounts as well. And I'm helping my customers to migrate their services from on-prem or hosted platforms to Office 365 with a best and minimum interruption to the end users. And apart from this, I used to conduct sessions. I'm a regional lead speaker for Microsoft as well to talk about the Exchange and Office 365 technologies. And I also speak in community forums as well. So today's session, what we are going to do in today's session, we are first of all going to see what type of identity management solutions are available in Office 365, how many types of the solutions are there, and what are the pros and cons of each and every identity management solution. And the last but most importantly, which identity management solution is best for my organization based on my organizational needs, and how do I decide which identity management solution I have to select when I'm actually planning for migrating the services to Office 365. So agenda, identity management overview, then we are going to look at what will be the right identity management solution, and the last I'm going to talk about a bit about the recently announced updates from Microsoft for the identity management solution that are for Office 365. Before we actually talk about the identity management solution, the first thing that I would like to talk about is what is identity. What we call an identity that we need to manage. We need to understand what is identity. So sometimes, in organizations, we have like users accounts, that are associated with individual users. Like Riaz is a user, he has a user account. But apart from the users accounts, we do have a lot of other things in our organization. Like we have service accounts. We do have our administrative accounts. These accounts are not associated with individuals, but these accounts are there for the administration purpose or to provide services to the end users as well. So identity management is actually deals with the identifying the individuals in a system, that who is the individual within a system, and once the individual is identified that this guy is authorized to access this information, then the identity management solution will actually control the access of the resource within the system, which means it's doing the two things. One is authenticating the user account or the service account or the individual, and the second thing is it's actually providing the authorization. So once the user account is being authenticated that Riaz is a legitimate user account, he can access the system, the second thing that identity management is going to handle is at what level of access Riaz can do to the system. What can Riaz do within a system? What can he access? What he can't access? What he can delegate to the other users, right? So collectively, the identity management has two things under his umbrella. One is the authentication, and the second one is authorization. Once the user is authenticated, then identity management is going to look at the user's authorization to see at what level of access the end user have and what end users can do. So how many types of identity management solutions we have available as of now in Office 365? Well, technically, there are 3 solutions that are available, but there are a few other solutions as well that I'm going to talk about at the end of these slides. But as of now, the most commonly used solutions are 3. The number 1 is we do cloud-based identities. Number 2 is we do synchronized identities, which means we deploy the directory synchronization tool that synchronizes our on-premises infrastructure with 365. And the third one is the federated identities, which also known as single sign-on identities. Again, for the single sign-on piece, the federation piece, we do have a lot of options available. We have a Microsoft Active Directory Federation services available that we can deploy to provide the single sign-on. We do have the solutions available from other competitors as well, like OneLogin, Simplified, Okta, or the other solutions as well. So let's look at the details of each and every identity management solution and how it works. So the first one is the cloud identity, or I would say identities in the cloud. What does it mean is that you do not have any local infrastructure in place, and you are creating and managing your identities in Office 365 only. And technically, Office 365 is restoring those particular identities in Azure Active Directory. So whatever administration tasks like creating a user, enabling a user account, disabling a user account, resetting the password, or enabling a user for a specific service, everything you are doing is doing in the cloud only. These type of identity management solutions are recommended for the customers of 10, 20, or 25 seats only. If you have more than 25 users accounts in your organization, Microsoft recommends to deploy a Active Directory infrastructure and then use a different identity management solution. The reason why Microsoft is recommending to have a domain controller or Active Directory infrastructure in your on-premises organization for more than 25 users is because when you have, let's say I have 30 users accounts or 40 users accounts, then how do I manage my identities? I'm managing all of my identities in 365. I'm creating a user in 365. I'm assigning the system access to the users by assigning a license in 365. Let's say we have a user Riaz, and the Riaz can only access Exchange Online as a user mailbox, right? So once I created a Riaz mailbox in 365, I'm going to assign Exchange Online license to the Riaz in 365, right? Then we do have a second user account, which is Shane. And I would like Shane to use Exchange Online as well as Sky for Business Online, SharePoint Online, and CRM Online as well. So the moment I'm going to create Shane's account in 365, I'm going to actually provide Shane the license for Exchange Online, Sky for Business Online, and SharePoint Online, also the CRM Online as well, because we would like Shane to use CRM Online as well. So if you look at the process, that how we are creating and assigning the licenses, this process is self-explanatory, and it's actually telling you that identity management is doing two parts. Number one is creating the user account with a username and a password, which is user's authentication. And once that piece is done, then the license that we are assigning to the user, like Riaz is only authorized to access emails only, right? So I'm just assigning Riaz the Exchange Online license. This is the authorization within the identity management umbrella. And Shane is another user. He can access Exchange Online, he can access SharePoint Online, he can access Sky for Business Online, and he can access CRM Online as well. So identity management is actually handling both these pieces in 365 as well by cloud-based identities. But again, the question is still there, why do I need to have a on-prem domain controller or on-prem Active Directory infrastructure when I have more than 25, 30, or 40 users accounts? When I can do everything in the cloud when it comes to the identity management of my solution or identity management for my services that I'm going to provide to the users. Well, the short answer is for the ease of administration. You can do this particular piece in cloud, and in cloud, let's say Riaz is a user and I got my cloud username and password for my services. I can access my services on my mobile device, I can access my services on my laptop, I can access services on my Mac as well. But think about my devices management. My laptop, it's a workstation. Then just like me, there will be few users accounts or other users in the organization who have multiple devices, and those are workstation devices. So one of those devices is being owned by the company or the company provided, right? So what happens is after 3 days, I say, I don't remember the password of my laptop. How do I log in? Being an administrator, you don't know the password of my machine as well, because I was a local administrator. I just changed the password, and now nobody knows my password, and either you have to break my password or you have to reinstall the operating system and everything. And this will cause a lot of issues. And honestly, I have seen these issues with the small organizations a lot. The IT resources used to get like 2 to 3 requests on a daily basis that I don't remember the password because I changed the password last night and now I don't remember the password. So kindly recover the password or reset my operating system so that I can have access to my data. Moving forward, the next solution is actually the synchronized identities. These identities are also known as a federated identities, but there is a difference. What happens is in this scenario, we do have our local Active Directory infrastructure, and regardless of the location of our Active Directory infrastructure, it could be on Amazon Cloud, it could be on Microsoft Azure using infrastructure as a services, or it could be my on-premises data center as well. We deploy a tool with the name of that tool is actually a directory synchronization tool. That tool will synchronize the user's accounts from local Active Directory to Office 365, and it will also synchronize the user's password with Office 365. Now what happened is, by doing so, by synchronizing the users along with the password hash with Office 365, we are providing the users a same sign-on experience for their services, right? So what happens is, a user is there, Riaz, his machine is a domain joined machine. We are planning to have a Office 365 setup in place. So what we did is we are going to set up a 365 tenant. We are going to set up a directory synchronization tool that is going to synchronize my on-premises Active Directory with Office 365. And once it's done, then I can simply give the authorization in Office 365 by assigning a license to my user account in 365 so the services that they can use. In this scenario, we are providing the users a same sign-on experience, which means it's not a true single sign-on, it's the same sign-on experience, which means users can use their local Active Directory username and password to access the services that are hosted in cloud. And any change to the user account, the user password, or any attribute update, the user's information update, this will happen in your on-premises Active Directory. Your local Active Directory will be the source for authorization, and your local Active Directory will be the point of authority from where the changes will replicate to Office 365. Now, the real life scenario is I have seen customers, large enterprise customers, that they have used this directory synchronization along with a password hash synchronization for their identity management in the cloud. But few customers that I have seen is they say that, Riaz, we cannot synchronize our password hashes with Office 365 whatsoever because our security policies does not allow us to do so. Then what would be the solution for us? In that scenario, we do have a next level of solution. That's our third option in the identity management solution. But before going to that particular option, let's talk about this option in more detail. What password hash is? What's the difference between the password and the password hash? Well, the directory synchronization tool, as of now, the latest tool name is Azure AD Connect. And we have a version 1.2 as of now available, and Microsoft keep on updating the tool to introduce new feature sets and introducing the, fixing the old issues that are being reported with the tool. So what happens is directory synchronization tool, it connects with your Active Directory infrastructure. It gets the information of your users' accounts based on the filtering options that you have applied. It could be possible you have applied a filtering option that this directory synchronization tool can read the information for the users that have a domain name of abc.com. Or we can also specify a filtering option that, this tool can only read the data or the user's information from certain OU. And the third option that we can do is we can define a third level of, which is a filtering, which is the most custom filtering. And that filtering is read the data from my whole organization, but when it comes to synchronizing the data with 365, please synchronize the data that has these certain parameters defined, like the manager attribute is being set to this one, or the office location attribute is being set to Europe, right? So what this tool can do is, this tool can do the filtering at 3 levels. One is the domain level. If I have multi-domain Active Directory infrastructure, I can define to synchronize the user's accounts only with a certain domain name. Second thing that I can do with the tool is I can do the OU-based filtering, which means, let's say I have a single Active Directory domain, but I have a lot of objects or the lingering objects in my Active Directory, or the objects or the service accounts that I do not want to transition or move to the cloud. I can actually specify the certain OUs that contains my users' information in the organization, and this tool will synchronize the users' accounts from only those OUs in the Active Directory. And the third option is my users' accounts are being scattered in different OUs, and those OUs does have some other users' accounts as well, which I do not want to synchronize. So what should I do? And at that point, we have a third level of synchronization, which is attribute-based synchronization. And what we do is we define the attributes and we create custom rules in the directory synchronization tool. And we say if this rule is being applicable or is going to be true, then synchronize the identity with 365. And these rules could be like office location is Europe. My office address will be this one. Or my user display name or user custom attribute contains this particular value. So it's up to you which attribute would you like to use to have an attribute-based filtering to synchronize your users' accounts with 365. Directory synchronization, the latest name of the tool, as I told you guys, is Azure AD Connect. This tool actually uses Microsoft Forefront Identity Manager behind the scene to have these particular synchronizations and these type of management agents that actually read the information and that writes the information to the cloud. Directory synchronization is also using a Microsoft SQL Express database on the back end, but you can also leverage or you can also use a full version of SQL Server as well based on your requirements. The SQL Express version, again, the limitations with the Express version are still the same for this tool as well. The size could be 10 GB, and Microsoft does recommend that you can use the SQL Express for up to 50,000 object synchronization. But on a TechNet, on the Microsoft forums, when I had a conversation with the engineering teams as well, they recommend to use SQL full version if you have more than 30,000 users object in your Active Directory infrastructure that you would like to synchronize. So with that being said, now the concern that the customer has is, what if this tool is going to write back the information in my Active Directory, and once the information is being written back, I might have my services issues, right? So no, the short answer to the customer is no, and the short answer to you guys is also no. The reason is this tool does not write back any information to your Active Directory until and unless you configure the tool to write back the information. So what does it mean is, let's say we created a user account in Office 365, which is a cloud-based user account. This tool is not going to read the user account from the cloud and write or create that particular user account in your on-prem Active Directory. It's not going to do that. What it's going to do is, it's going to get the user's information from local Active Directory. It's going to get the information from Azure Active Directory, or I would say 365, and then it's going to compare the information. And the differential information of on-premises infrastructure will be written to the 365 or the Azure Active Directory on the back end. And let's say you have 100 users accounts in 365, and now you have decided to integrate your on-prem Active Directory with 365. So what you will do is you will deploy the tool. This tool will run the initial synchronization for the 100 accounts that you already have in 365. What it will do is it will compare the UPN. If the UPN in the cloud and the on-premises Active Directory is same, this tool is going to consolidate or merge the identity in 365, not on the on-premises side of the house. And once those 100 identities are being merged, then the next step is, because my Active Directory has thousands of objects, it's going to create new identities for the rest of the 900 or remaining number of objects that we have in our Active Directory infrastructure. Okay. So now the question is the password hashes. When we are going to use this particular tool for synchronizing the identities with 365 along with a password hash, how does it synchronize my identities with 365 using the password hash? Well, what this tool is going to do is going to read the user's information along with a password from the local Active Directory. Once the information is being read, then this tool is going to encrypt or convert the information into a hash, which is going to be, again, using a hashing algorithm from Microsoft that is built into the tool. You don't have to do anything special in order to enable the hashing or stuff like that. And once this is being done, that hash will be synchronized to the Azure Active Directory. This tool is not going to synchronize a password directly. It's actually going to synchronize the password hash with 365 or the Azure Active Directory. So the security is there. Number one, the password hash or the information that is going to be synchronized with 365, that's going to be synchronized on port 443 SSL. And the second thing is the password hash, which we are syncing. It's not the actual password of the user account. It's the encrypted password of the user account that can be decrypted on the 365 side of the house as well. And Microsoft says that the encryption algorithm is actually a 256 encryption, 256 bits encryption. And this is something which even a Microsoft engineer who is working on the back end in the Azure Active Directories and stuff like that is not able to decrypt at his own. So this is a very secure password as well. So once we have this solution in place, this actually provides a same sign-on experience to the user. The latest tool, Azure AD Connect, it actually synchronizes the identities with Office 365 after every 30 minutes. That's a delta synchronization. Initial synchronization, which is a full synchronization for the very first time, that actually synchronizes your whole Active Directory based on your filtering or whatever the custom rules you have for the synchronization. And after that, once the initial sync is being in place, then this tool is going to check your local Active Directory after every 30 minutes by default. And again, by default. So you can change the default time as well. So after every 30 minutes, it will connect with the Active Directory, and it will look at the information being changed for the user, like a user display name is changed, a new username is being created, a user account is being disabled or enabled, a password is being reset, and these kind of things. The differential information or the updated information, this tool will synchronize with 365. So we can say our Active Directory changes can replicate to 365 within 30 minutes at max. But now the second thing is the password sync. The password sync changes that actually synchronize with 365 in a real time, or I would say within every 2 minutes. The Azure AD Connect tool will check the Active Directory if there's any password change happen. And if there's any user, let's say Riaz, he has changed his password, this tool will read the Riaz new password, convert to the hash, and synchronize with the 365. So Riaz, after changing the password, he will be able to use his new password with Office 365 within 5 to 10 minutes at max. Okay, so now this is the second option, and this is also known as a same sign-on experience for the end users. Now the last option is, which is the third option, is the federated identities. We can leverage any federated identity management solution, like we can use ADFS for single sign-on, we can use Okta, we can use Simplified, we can use OneLogin, or any other competitive solution that is available in the market based on our requirement. So federated identities is actually a single sign-on solution for the users, so that when the user is within the organization network, Riaz is sitting in the Office LAN network, and he has to access the services, right, in 365. And we would like our end users that they don't have to use their username and password every time then when they are going to leverage or use the cloud-based services. Because in the same sign-on experience, if I'm even sitting on the Office network, I'm going to open up the outlook.office365.com for my web emails. I actually have to put in my username and password. But with the single sign-on, when I'm sitting in the local area network, I do not have to enter my credentials every time that I'm going to access the services, because it's going to read the user's information from my local machine, and it's going to pass that information behind the scene to my ADFS servers to get the authentication certificate, and then it's going to actually authenticate with a 365 based on that particular authentication mechanism that we have in place. So ADFS, what's the benefit of ADFS, or why we need to use ADFS or the federated identity solution is, the first thing is the core components in order to have a federated identities are still there. Like we need one 365 tenant, we need on-premises Active Directory infrastructure, we need one synchronization or directory synchronization tool. Now based on your solution, you can either use Microsoft Azure AD Connect tool, which is a Microsoft Directory Synchronization tool, or if you are using some other type of single sign-on solutions, and if they provide their own directory synchronization tool, you can also leverage that particular tool as well. So what happens is the core components are going to be 365 tenant should be there, Active Directory should be there, we should have a DirSync tool, which is like Azure AD Connect or any third-party tool, right? On top of that, we have to have set up our single sign-on solution. Like I'm going to talk about Office 365 single sign-on using the ADFS. So with ADFS, we need to deploy Active Directory Federation services. We actually need a public certificate for the single sign-on as well for the token signing purpose, and we do need some proxy servers to publish our ADFS to the internet, and we do need a public IP address. Again, these are the additional resources that we need. And these type of federated identity management solution, these are basically being used by large enterprise customers or some customers based on their specific security requirements, or they already have a ADFS infrastructure in place for any previous application that they are using in their infrastructure. So in that scenario, what happens is internal user that's sitting on their LAN network, he don't have to actually put in the username and password when he is going to access the service in the cloud. But when a user from the internet is going to access the same services, he will be landed to the ADFS login page, and he will be asked to enter his Active Directory information, username and a password. So once he entered that particular information, ADFS server on the back end will authenticate a user with local Active Directory and provide authentication to the user account to access the services in 365. So what happens is we are not synchronizing our user's password with Office 365. All the authentication requests are coming to my local Active Directory infrastructure. So we are actually having our Active Directory a bit more processing for the services from the internet, because we are not doing authentication on 365 side of the house. We are redirecting all the authentication requests back to our on-premises Active Directory, and on-premises Active Directory is actually authenticating the user and then providing the authorization to access the services based on whatever authorization we have configured in Office 365. This is how the ADFS single sign-on solution works. And again, ADFS, a bit more detail on is ADFS does use a multiple sort of a single sign-on solutions. It could be a SAML based, or it could be a Windows Server Trust Federation. And apart from that piece, what you can do is on the ADFS deployment, again, when you are using the ADFS, or when you have decided that you would be using ADFS, a proper planning for the ADFS is required. A single ADFS server can handle users' traffic or the users' request of up to 15,000 users accounts. So based on your number of users count, you need to prepare or plan the ADFS infrastructure accordingly. My recommendation, even if you have 1,000, 2,000, and you have decided that we need to have ADFS infrastructure in place, my recommendation is to have a minimum of 2 ADFS servers and 2 web application proxy servers for the high availability purpose. ADFS servers or ADFS server form, that can be deployed, and again, that needs to have some sort of a database as well to store these kind of token signing information and a configuration information. So ADFS has 2 types of actually databases. One is Windows internal database, which is again a SQL Express version. Okay, and the second thing is we can leverage a full-fledged SQL to have the ADFS backend database. And this is again a requirement or something that we usually do for having a large enterprise customer, geo-redundancy, and we would like to leverage the SQL high availability feature set so that we can provide the high availability of our single sign-on solution as well in case even our single data center goes down. So with that being said, now the next thing is we need to consider all these parameters, and we need to decide which identity management solution is best for my organization. Should I go to 365? Should I go to my synchronized identities? Or should I go to the federated identities? Again, the parameters that I discussed is 365 solution or a cloud-based identity solution. A simple answer to that particular service is you should leverage the cloud-based identity if you do not have any on-premises infrastructure. It's not about Active Directory. It's about your other services as well, that you are a new startup company, you are setting up your new company, and you know that for next 2 or 4 years, we are going to be at max, let's say 50 or 100 employees in the company. I would recommend to go with the Office 365 cloud-based identity and, leverage the cloud-based services like, today we have almost every service available in the cloud that we can leverage. And then the second solution is the synchronized identities. The one parameter for this solution is you already have your local Active Directory in place. You would like your end users that they should be able to log into the cloud-based services using the same username and password that they have as of now in local Active Directory. So and you do not have any security implications, and you do not want to have a complex ID infrastructure, and you do not have some certain requirements of security that do not allow to synchronize the password hash with 365. And the third one is ADFS. There are three scenarios or three things that you need to consider before you actually go with the ADFS solution. Well, the scenarios for the ADFS solutions are, number one, you already have a ADFS infrastructure in place, which means the ADFS-based single sign-on or any single sign-on, I would say, infrastructure is in place, and you already have an SSO configured with other applications as well. It could be possible that you're using a single sign-on solution with Salesforce, or you could be using a single sign-on solution with any other third-party application or in-house application as well, based on that particular application requirement. So if you already have ADFS or any federated solution in place, then there's nothing to harm that we can extend that particular solution with Office 365 as well to provide a single sign-on solution to the users. The second thing is your technical requirements. Again, the technical requirements are more of a requirements that, we cannot synchronize our user's password with 365, or the way we have to deploy the tool, we are not going to allow to synchronize the passwords on a port 443, and we do have some certain requirements, and our policies are there, and anything like that. The technical requirements that are not going to meet under the same sign-on experience, you should go with a federated identities. Like a technical requirement could be, in any case, my user should get my authentication from my local Active Directory, and he should not be getting a username and a password pop-up or a username and password window every time when they are going to access the services in cloud used on the local area network, right? Or the technical requirements could be you need to have configured the access control policies in ADFS, which are not available in your identity management solution of federated synchronized identities. The access control policies in ADFS, like we are going to allow only the web-based access of the cloud-based services from the internet. We are going to block all cloud-based access from the internet. Or the third option could be the users will be able to access all of the 365 services from Office network only. So again, these type of technical requirements, when we are going to restrict the user access based on the location, these should be considered, or this should actually drive us to have a federated identity management solution. And the last thing is the policy requirement. Again, the policy requirement, it could be your IT policy, it could be your security policy that says in any case the user needs to be authenticated from your local Active Directory infrastructure. We should not be synchronizing our passwords with 365, although whatever security, whatever level of the security is available to us when we are synchronizing the password hash. Even if I have seen a customer, even they have Express route configured with Microsoft Azure data centers, and still they do not use Azure AD Connect tool with a password synchronization. They are using ADFS-based single sign-on. So the third driver for the federated identities is actually your policy requirements. And it could be your IT policies, it could be your business policies, it could be your IT security policies. And the last thing that I wanted to discuss before we actually wrap up this particular session for the day is the identity integration options. And this slide is actually a summary of what we discussed. We talked about the cloud identities, we talked about the directory synchronization, and then we talk about the password synchronization as well. The cloud identities is again a small organizational identity management solution. The directory synchronization and password sync, this is the mandatory stuff, or this is the mandatory requirement for any customer, for any large enterprise customer or medium-sized enterprise customer that would like to leverage the existing local Active Directory username and password for the authentication purpose. So again, why do I have two different columns for directory sync and then the password sync is because if I'm going to use the same sign-on experience, which is going to be synchronizing the local Active Directory along with a password hash, then I need to have a directory synchronization in place And on top of that, I need to synchronize my user's password. Again, this is going to happen with the same tool. But if I have a single sign-on infrastructure requirement, then I need directory synchronization in place at minimum. I don't need password synchronization. And on top of directory synchronization, I will be configuring the single sign-on solution. So these are the solutions that we talked about. There are a couple of other solutions which are being used by large enterprise customers, which is like, one is the Graph API, and the second one is the FIM. As I told you guys, the directory synchronization tool behind the scene is using a FIM agent, which is a small level of, or I would say a small part of FIM. So the large enterprise customer, they do deploy a full-fledged forefront identity management solution. Now the new name of the tool is MIM, and that tool, actually, we configure the workflows, we configure the the rules, and we configure the customizations on how the rule will be, and we do everything from the single administration pane for the user's administration, and we delegate the administrations based on the user role. And the Graph APIs, again, the Azure Active Directory, that is using Graph APIs or REST APIs on the back end, and you can use the Graph APIs to consolidate or to merge your identity management solutions with the Azure Active Directory, and to have a identity management solution for your custom applications, or if you have any in-house build application that you would like to test with a cloud-based identity solution, you can actually use the Graph APIs to do the testing of your identity management solutions with the Graph APIs. Again, FIM and Graph APIs, these are the two solutions that are being used by fairly large enterprise customers. So with that being said, this actually scenario or this particular conversation actually end up our today's webinar. So now I would like to open up this particular session for questions. So if you guys have any question, please feel free to ask us, and I will be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Riaz, for a great presentation. Yes, we have some questions here. So the first one is, what's the difference between same sign-on and single sign-on?
Well, the main difference between the same sign-on and the single sign-on is, in same sign-on experience, the first thing is the user has to enter his user's name and password every time that when he's going to access his services, regardless of the user location, right? So let's say Riaz is a user and he wants to access emails on either Outlook client or on the OWA client, and I'm in Office Network. When I'm going to run the Outlook client or the Outlook web app client, I have to enter my username and password to access my services, right? With the same single sign-on solution, what happens is, I do not have to enter my username and password because it's going to automatically authenticate my user account using the credentials that are in my Windows domain joined machine. That's the number one advantage. And the second thing from the administrative or the security point of view is, with single sign-on solution, all of your identities or all of your authentication is being handled by your local Active Directory infrastructure. With same sign-on, you are synchronizing your password with 365, and if you are accessing the services, you are actually being authenticated on the 365 side of the house. Your authentication request is not coming to your on-premises Active Directory, because 365 does have your password hash synchronized, and it's going to authenticate you against that particular password hash.
Great. Azure AD Connect is going to synchronize passwords with Office 365. Is it secure to sync passwords over the internet?
Well, the first thing is, Azure AD Connect, it's not going to synchronize the password. It's going to synchronize the password hash, which is an encrypted form of your password. So your password is not going to be synchronized, and it's going to synchronize the data on port 443 or SSL channel, and it's secure. And Microsoft even says that this is going to use actually a 256-bit of encryption to synchronize that particular data, and that data synchronization, that will happen on the port 443, and it's secure. And even a Microsoft Azure Active Directory administrator, or I would say engineer, or whoever the end user is or the administrator is, he even don't have the ability to decrypt that particular hash to read the user password.
Okay, brilliant. As I was saying to people at the very start, we have recorded this entire webinar and it will be available later. Riaz, thank you very much for your time today. That was an excellent presentation. Okay, so thank you, Riaz. So for more top quality training from the world's best speakers, look no further than Vienna for the European SharePoint Conference 2016. Book now, early bird prices end in 7 days. That's it for now. Join us again for our next webinar on Thursday, July 7th from 1 to 2 p.m. CEST for understanding how the new SharePoint Fabric impacts your intranet project with Jeff Fried, CTO at BA Insight USA. Thank you and goodbye.